Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today on Krista So Crafty. Today, I want to make some fabric holders for my scissors. So I have two different sizes here. This one is approximately 8 inches and this one is approximately 6 inches. I've already cut out the fabric and the batting, but for your 8-inch pair of scissors, I cut 9-inch squares. So I cut a 9-inch square of the fabric I'm going to have on the front. This is my lining and then my batting. So I have 3 pieces, all 9 inches. For the 6-inch pair of scissors, I've gone ahead and I've cut 3 squares. The front material is 7 inches, the lining is 7 inches, and the batting is 7 inches. So whatever size scissors you have, err on the side of caution, and if they're 5 inches, cut the material at 6 inches. If it's 11-inch scissors, then cut the material at 12 inches. So now it's fairly quick and easy to do these. So I'll start with this little one here. So you want your batting on the bottom. Oh, and by the way, I am using up a bunch of scrap pieces of batting, and as you can see, I have stitched them together. I will pop in a little video right here and show you exactly how I've gone ahead and done this. It's quite easy and it's a great way to use up some of your scraps. For this project, we'll need some batting. So I have some scrap batting, but they're not wide enough for the project that we're working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them together. I put my sewing machine on zigzag, like 7.5, as wide as it can go. And I'm just going to stitch these together. This is a great way to be able to use up some of the smaller scraps. You can put it together, and honestly, once you sew it together like this, you're not even going to realize it when you start working on the project. So I'll show you. So just sew right down the center. I'm kind of pushing the fabric, I'm kind of pushing the batting together, but I'm not overlapping it because you don't want that bulge. So I'm just taking where they're joining and I'm butting them together like this, and I'm running the center of my sewing machine foot right down that center. And like I said, don't overlap them. And then this is it. Now you've got a wider piece that you can use and use up some of those strips of your batting. You know me, I'm all about scrap busting. All right, so there's the batting. We're going to take our material and you're going to put it face up on your batting. Line it right up like so. And then you're going to take your lining. Now mine doesn't have a right or wrong side, but if you did have a right or a wrong side, you would want to put your right side down. Okay. Once you've got this all laid out like this, you're going to take some pins, and I'm going to put just a few pins around here. Down at the bottom here, I am putting some pins because this is where I'm going to start with a back stitch, and I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm going to end here with a back stitch. I'm going to give that a little bit more of an opening. This will leave an opening so that we can turn our project right sides out. So I'm just going to pop a few pins around here real quick. Now the nice thing again with this project is it's a great scrap buster. All the materials that I am using, I've gotten out of my scrap bin, and like the batting I already told you, I'm using from my scraps. So we're going to do the exact same thing for the large scissor case holder. So get these strings off of here. So one thing about the batting, it sure collects all the strings. And again, I've sewn this together so that I could make my piece of batting that I need. So line these up like that. And again, same thing, we're going to leave an opening at the bottom. Now, if you have directional material, you'll want to be very careful with that. My material is not directional, so I can just go ahead and place these together and not worry about that. But be mindful if you do have directional material. So once we get this done, it's very quick and easy little project. What we're going to do is we're going to take these to the sewing machine, which is right here, and I'm going to start here, backstitch, and go all the way around. When I get to here, I'm going to backstitch. The reason you do the back stitches is so that when you go to flip this around, you're not going to be ripping out your stitches. You want to do that back stitch to ensure that, you know, the stitches are going to stay together. So now I can take these both to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch around them. And I'm just using white thread so you can see what's going on. You would want to use a matching thread. In this case, I'm just using the white so that you can see where I'm stitching and stopping and starting and all of that. But in reality, you would want to use a thread that matches. So realistically, I would use a red thread with this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this off zigzag and I'm going to change my sewing machine to 1/4 inch. So my needle moves over. So I'm just going to run the material along the edge of my presser foot, and I was able to move my needle over to the 1/4 inch mark. If you don't have that, just do 1/4 inch all the way around. So I'm going to start right about here. So I'm going to put my needle down, put my presser foot down, and do a back stitch, and then go around. Now when you get to the corners, be sure to make sure your needle is down and turn, which I didn't go quite far enough. One more. There we go. So put your needle down, turn, and then continue on. Now that I'm at the end, I'm just going to do a little back stitch to make sure the stitches don't come out and cut my thread. So I'm going to repeat the same process with the larger piece. All right, so we're all done. Have them both sewn, so now we can go ahead and flip them around. All right, so I'm just going to clip these little threads out here, like that. And then what I'm going to do is I will use my scissors, and I'm just going to clip off these corners. Now, these aren't fabric scissors, but they're doing okay. These are more of my craft scissors. So we'll get those out of the way. We need to bring this around, and you're going to reach in between the outside material and the inside material. Okay, so you're going to reach in and you're going to pull this fabric out. When I get to the corner, I just take my finger and I kind of push it up into the corner and just fold it and bring it out like so. You're just going to do that for the whole thing. And this corner over here, like that, and pop this out here. Like so. So you should have something that looks similar to this. So just a square that's all sewn. So we want to make sure that your material and your batting and everything are all laying nicely. So I just go along with my fingernails and just kind of get underneath that seam right here and just kind of push them out. And I will take a pencil for the lack of anything else better to use. Be very careful if you're going to use a pencil. You want to go inside and poke out these corners. So just poke them out nicely. Be careful, you don't want that pencil lead to go through your fabric. Do this to all 4 corners. Now this process is the exact same thing for the small one. So I will show you when I have both of them done. Now that I have both of these flipped around so that the right sides are out, we need to address the hole that's left here. So the easiest way is to kind of take your fingers and put it inside and just kind of push, and I don't know how to explain it properly. When you put your fingers in and kind of pull, both of these sides kind of fold into where they should be, and then you can just grab them, line them all up, and just pop a little pin in there. Now we are going to take this over to the ironing board, so you know you don't want to don't put your pins in this way. Just put it in this way so you can still iron over that. We're going to do the exact same thing with this one. So put my fingers on either side where these stitches are, And as soon as I do that, you'll see that the material flips. I'm going to hold it with my fingers and get a pin in there. Just like that. So now I'm going to take these both over to the iron and give them a really good press so that everything is laying down nicely. Okay. Our next step is we're going to take these to the sewing machine, and because we need to close up this opening. So what we're going to do is so the opening on mine is right here. So I'm going to start right about here, and I'm going to do a stitch all the way around, which will do two different things. Number one, it will close up the hole, and it will give this a nice edging, a nice finishing stitch for the project. All right. So again, my opening is right here. Zoom out just a little bit for you. My opening is right here. So I'm going to start right about here. And I want to do about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So I'm going to put my needle in the center. I'm going to change my stitch length to 3.0, and I'm going to stitch right in that spot all the way around. I'll get my thread flipped to the other side here so it doesn't get knotted up. There we go. So I'm going to put my presser foot down, and I'm not going to do a back stitch at this point because once I come back around, I will do a back stitch then. So let's get zoomed in here a little bit more. All right, hold on to that thread and let's go. Yeah, my material is kind of moved. There we go. Just had kind of moved a little bit and I didn't like the way it was sitting. So, and remember, don't sew over your pins. Go right to the corner, get to your spot, put your needle down, lift your presser foot and turn. Coming down to where we started, so I'm going to make sure that everything lines up, and I'm going to stitch over a few stitches and then reverse. So now this one's all done. We're going to repeat the same process with this one. Okie dokies. So now I'm just going to use these scissors and I'm going to trim up some threads. Now I got a little bit of a bird's nest back here, a rat's nest. So I'm just going to do my best to try to clean that up. And trim up all these threads so everything looks nice as you can get it. Get the threads out of the way. Trim up this one. And this here as well. All right. There's our two pieces. So now we can move on to the next step. Now that we're at this point where we've sewn everything together, we've closed up the opening, and we have a nice stitch all the way around, it's time to start putting our scissor case together. So let's work with the big one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, remember how I had that little rat's nest? I'm going to make sure that it's going to be in the part that's folded over. I don't want it in this part here because then you'd be able to see all that. And we don't want to see that little rat's nest. So what you need to do, there's not a big science about this. It's just you're going to fold it over approximately in half, about like that. And then you want to fold this piece over. And if you have it right, then, see, I need to move that over just a little bit. You fold this over so that this edge lines up over here. And at the end, well, I don't have a very good square point there, so I need to bring this in a little bit more, I think. There we go. That's better. So you just have to kind of fiddle around with it a little bit. Now this point is going to be very bulky, so I don't worry about the fact that it's not at a complete point. Because of the layers of material and the batting, it's pretty thick there. So I don't get too concerned about it. I leave it about like that. So I'm actually going to put, well, I'm going to put a pin in right here, like so. And then that will hold this in place. So now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch, following that stitch line that we did before. I'm going to follow that stitch line along here and attach that down. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with our little scissor case as well. So I'm going to fold this over approximately in half. You can fold this over to make sure it's going to sit properly, and it is. So we'll just give that a little pin. Now, you don't really need to pin this, but I just want to pin this down on the bottom again so that that sits nicely and it doesn't scoot out because it is pretty thick down here. Okay, so let's bring this one in, and I am going to start up at the top here. I'm going to put my needle right on that stitch line. And I'm just going to sew right down this line here. Make sure you do a back stitch. And I like to go over the edge of the top here to make sure that it's caught, so that it has some stitching, because that's where the stress will be on your scissor case, will be at that top edge. I'll show you once I get this all sewn. All the way down. So there we go. And make sure you back stitch at the end. Okay, and we'll repeat that same process with the big one. I'm going to start up here at the top. Put our needle down, press her foot down, and do a back stitch. And then we'll just sew all the way down. Perfect. We need to trim our little threads here, like so, and on the back side. If you have a Janome, you'll understand about these little ones on the back side. So don't forget about those. You want your project as nice and neat as possible. So trim that. There we go. Before we sew this one down, there are different ways that you can put your closure on here. You could put little Velcro on there. You could, and actually I might do Velcro. You could do a buttonhole. You could put a buttonhole and then sew a button on so that it would close like that. You could use the can snaps, which I've done in the past, where it works great as well. So you just snap it closed. Or you can use Velcro. And I think I'm going to use Velcro, but you want to make sure no matter what you're doing, you want to do it before you sew this down. Because if you sew this down, you're going to have a hard time sewing or getting a can snap on there or sewing the Velcro on. So you want to make sure you do your closure before you sew this piece on. Okay. So let me go and grab my Velcro and we will continue on. All right. So here's my Velcro. You want to make sure you have, obviously one of each side. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut approximately an inch. Okay. So I want to cut approximately an inch of each side of your Velcro. And of course I have two, so I'm two scissor pouches I'm making. So I'm going to cut two of these like that. And put that to the side. Now all you need to do, let's move that out of the way. It doesn't matter which piece you put where. I'm going to put the hard part. So if you look at both of these, there's kind of you can feel it when you have it in your hands. A soft part and then a hard part. I'm going to put the hard part out here and I'm going to put the soft part on here. So I'm going to take and place this close to the point of my scissor pouch. And I'm going to see if I can get a pin through here. Pinning Velcro is not always the easiest, but I'm going to try. There we go. Okay, so now that you have that on there, now we need to figure out the placement for this piece. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And I'm going to fold this over like so, because we're going to stitch down here, remember. So I'm going to fold this over, and we need to have this Velcro piece match up with this one. So what I do is, now that I've got this folded over and I know where I want it, I'm going to lift this up so that I can see the edge of my Velcro, and I'm going to put that right there. And now that is the exact placement of where I need my Velcro. So let me do this, and that will be perfect. And I turned it a little bit, so I'm just going to turn it that way. It doesn't matter, it's going to stick no matter what. But again, you want to make sure you do this process before you sew it down. So I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to take my scratchy bit, and I'm going to pin it right up here, like that. Try to get it as straight as I can. And I'm going to pin it in place. I'm going to fold this over to where it's going to be sewn and flip this down. And now I'm going to take my little piece of Velcro, fold this up, line it up along the bottom, and right there is where it needs to be. And I want to show you something here. These are now ready to go. But I want to show you something. It's breakfast time and somebody's hungry. Somebody wants some breakfast. So we're going to go get him some breakfast, and we'll be right back. You want some breakfast? Okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I'm coming. He gets very excited about his breakfast. Says, come on, Mom, let's go. Okay, you gotta sit. Oh, what a good boy. Good boy. There's your breakfast. Okay. Good boy, Tux. All right, Tux has been fed. We can now take these to the sewing machine, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew a box around each of these. Okay, so let's go do that. If you have a sewing machine that makes those little rat's nests on the back, one thing you can do to try to alleviate that is to bring up your bottom thread first. So what I do is I put my thread through the center of my presser foot here, and I'm going to put my needle down, and I'm going to put my needle up, and if you gently pull, you will get your thread, your bobbin thread up. And I think I just lost it. It's there. There we go. And then when you start sewing, if you hold on to both of those threads, theoretically, you should not get that big rat's nest at the back. So let's bring this in, and we're just going to use a regular straight stitch. I took that pin out. I'm going to put my needle down. I'm going to hold on to both of these threads, press your foot down, hold on to both of these, and we'll start sewing. I am going to do a back stitch. You want this secure because it will have a lot of pressure on it as you're opening and closing the pouch. So I'm down the one side. You can let go of that now. I'm going to move my pins out of the way. I'm going to turn this, and I'm just going to do a square all the way around the outside, and this will hold the Velcro in place. One more little stitch, there we go, and turn it. When you get to the end, make sure you do a back stitch and cut your thread. And that gives you a nice, neat back without having the rat's nest. I just need to remember to pull up that thread is all. I'm just going to flip this over, and I'm going to sew the other piece of this Velcro in place. I want to make sure it's straight, and of course I have lines on here, so I can use those lines to my advantage. And see, I almost did it right away. So I'm going to move that over. I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread like so. And I sometimes will use my seam ripper to help pull that thread out, which is right there. There we go. So get both those threads over here. And that Velcro is all in place where we need it, and away we go. Okay, now I'm going to go and I'm going to repeat the same process on the smaller one. It is time to clip some threads. Get this looking all nice and neat. And again, using this method with the bobbin thread being pulled up has eliminated any rat's nest. Of course, we have lots of little threads, but right, so we don't have that rat's nest here, which is wonderful. Okay, and make sure this is all trimmed up. Oh, there's some little ones. Now we are ready to go and stitch this over like so, and then that Velcro will come over and catch. So let's take this over and sew it on both of these like this. Make sure this is all lined up, which it is. Perfect. So let's take these over and sew these, and then we're pretty much done. So I have decided I'm going to put my tag on here. I'm going to put it right down near the bottom here, right about there. And we're just going to line this up. Now you're going through a whole lot of material, so be very careful. Put your needle down and line this up. And if you had some clips, you could clip this if you wanted. Again, we need to back stitch. Make sure you have a bigger stitch going right now, so maybe even like a 3.0. Because of the thickness, you don't want your stitch length to be really small. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure that this is in here where I want it, which is right there. And I'm gonna keep sewing all the way down. Sorry if my fingers are in the way. That one's done, and we'll do the exact same thing with the large one. And that, my friends, is a wrap, as they say in show business. We now have our scissor holders all ready to go. So now all that's left to do is to put our scissors into the case, and as you can see, they sit in there so nicely. Pull that Velcro down and connect it. And there's one, and then we'll put our other pair of scissors in here, push them all the way in, bring this down and secure it. Now our scissors are safely stored away inside our scissor case, and the ends of the scissors are not going to be cutting through or poking through anything. If you're going on a craft retreat, let's say, or a sewing retreat, or even a cross-stitch retreat, and you have a pair of scissors, if you don't have them enclosed, you have the chance of them poking through your material, your Aida cloth, your, whatever it is you're making. And that would just be so sad, right? So make yourself a set of these scissor holders. They're quick and easy, and you can make them any size, as you saw. Take your scissors, measure them. If they're 5 inches, then you cut 6-inch squares. If they're 8 inches, then you cut 9-inch squares. Easy, easy, easy. Very minimal amount of material to make these. You can use scraps, as you've seen, and they're great. Now, these would also make a great gift for a beginner sewer, a beginner cross stitcher, or someone who's crocheting. Buy them a little pair of scissors. If it doesn't come with a case, you now know how to make a case yourself. Thank you again for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and click on the little bell so that you will receive notification every time I upload a video. I will put a couple more videos here for you to check out while you're waiting for me to upload a new video. Thank you again, and happy crafting.